Hi there, welcome to the RevOps Show. Our topic today was prompted by Doug mentioning that we worry a lot about not making sales reps do anything, because sales reps don't do anything. He was being quite sarcastic, but what he means by this is that there tends to be pushback a lot of times because we're asking users to do too much. We need to make life easier and eliminate friction, right? So, while the topic may have come from a sarcastic place, it brought to light the importance of sludge, nudges, and traction, which Doug and Jess get into here in the episode.
Jess, welcome back to another episode of What Went Wrong. I'm sorry, that's what this podcast should be called.
I'm gonna regret sharing that podcast with you. I have noticed that you slipped what went wrong into like just saying that randomly in spaces.
Okay, I've only done it on purpose 2 times. This was the second time.
So there's been 3 that I've picked up. So one of them was unintentional.
One of them was unintentional. That was earlier today, I bet.
Yeah.
And I think I realized I said it after I said it, but I didn't intend it. Yeah.
Okay, well.
So, anyways.
Well, it fit in the conversation.
It does. I mean, isn't that what RevOps is really all about, is identifying what went wrong?
What went wrong? That feels like that's been our week. That's been the theme of the week. What went wrong?
What are you talking about? Nothing goes wrong here.
Nothing goes wrong.
We are a flawless machine. Flawless execution, Jess. Military precision.
That's what we're known for. Flawless execution.
Military precision reminds me of the episode. So I'm rewatching West Wing. Reminds me of the episode when they're testing the missile system.
Mm-hmm.
And Leo goes, "How much did it miss by?" 137 feet. And Leo says, "I'm sorry." The military guy said 137.
Mm-hmm.
And Leo goes, "Missed by 130. So we missed by 137 feet." And the military officer replies, "No, we missed by 137 miles." That's what I think of when I think of military precision.
When are you not rewatching The West Wing? Is my question.
I don't know. Jess, I've been up to West Wing. I've been rewatching a lot of. I mean, I rewatched Succession. I had rewatched a lot of, like, if it needed. I rewatched Silo. I was in a very dystopian place.
I have no context for Silo. You and Ash talk about it, but I have don't know what it is. Don't zero context.
Just think of it as dystopian. It's just dystopian.
Okay.
I was in a very dystopian place. And so, I think I started to watch it because I needed something. So I finished Successions and I started playing Billions, and I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do Billions right after Succession.
I can't deal with this.
So I think I need a palate cleanser. I need somebody to bring, I needed to watch something that would match up a speechwriter with a prostitute.
Wow.
That's what West Wing is about, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, that was initially what it was supposed to be about.
We are off to hell of a start. Jess, I'm in the middle of my RevOps Acceleration Framework podcast tour.
I'm aware. You have a podcast today on top of this one, right?
I have a podcast. I think this week I have 4. I think I've done 4 podcast episodes this week.
Are you not exhausted?
Oh, it is. It's a lot easier being on this side than it is on the other side. Because when I'm on the other side, I'm trying to be respectful. I don't want to interrupt the host. It's their show.
Respectful? What is this? Oh, so
you've never seen it. You've never seen that side of me.
For me, you have no issue with being disrespectful and interrupting. Great. That tracks.
I'm sorry. I thought you were already aware of that. I thought that was the
you
basis
just confirmed my suspicions. Is really what it was.
Yeah, it is. It is fascinating.
So plug the shows. What shows have you done?
Oh my God, am I supposed to? Well, you know what? So here's the thing. Here's what's weird. Okay. So I had self-published a book a long time ago. I forget what the 11 Laws of something. And I did a radio tour.
Mm-hmm.
now radio tours are cool because you're basically you're on for 3 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're basically doing them in sessions of an hour or two. So it's like you're on this show, then you're on this show. It's nice, it's quick hits, etc. And and you're on the show, and the show's that day. You're typically on live.
Right.
Podcasts, so you're on them. I don't know when they come out. Right, so they're there. They come out when they come out. There's no.
Yep.
So it's I mean, the media world is bizarre. So I was on Hub Heroes last week. That has come out.
Mm-hmm.
I did Force and Friction yesterday. I did the John Popolino show earlier this week. I did I got the Wayfinders show today or something. I've got I did Know Your Shit a couple weeks ago. I've come to realize that apparently realtors, real estate people, the real estate industry,
yep,
people like to do podcasts there. I think I'm on. I think in the podcasts that have been booked, I think it's easily more than 5, and they're all like more than 5 where it's a realtor and
interesting.
It's doing the show. So I don't know.
Cool. Well, Hannah can link.
Everyone's got an angle in the real estate business, Jess. Everyone's got an angle.
Always. Hannah should be able to link those in the show notes.
We should. Aren't I supposed to be getting a list of people who bought the book? Wasn't I supposed to give everyone who bought the book a shout out?
We should be getting that. So
you know what? I think that's how we should manage the company from now on.
Just leave notes for the team on RevOps Show. It'll be a good indication of who listens and who doesn't. That's
I think we just leave instructions on.
So you're gonna go the route of public humiliation.
Not at all. Flawless execution, Jess.
Flawless execution. That's right.
Flawless execution.
I'm gonna
military
get that
precision.
I'm gonna get that on a sticker. Flawless execution, military precision lift.
Flawless execution is the name of a book.
I'm sure it is.
You know what another name of a book is?
What?
The Revenue Acceleration Framework. Oh my God, you walked right into that.
That I knew what you were doing.
Oh, gotcha.
This is our shtick.
As a matter of fact, you could even say the best-selling book, the Revenue
Acceleration Framework. Yes. The best
selling.
selling.
So on the podcast yesterday, on Force and Friction yesterday, I was talking with Mike, who's the host of the show, and I brought up my favorite piece of go-to-market trivia. Right? What's the difference between decide and homicide?
Yep.
And you know what he said in response?
What?
That's on page 149. And you know what? It's on page 149. It is on page 149.
Do you have it dog-eared? Do you have it highlighted? That's pretty impressive.
I don't know, but I was very impressed. I was very impressed. Although, you know what I told him? My number one, what I would tell you the number one takeaway from the book is, if I could boil it down to just one single takeaway, do less with more.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't
do
that
less
sound
with more.
Doesn't that sound wrong?
It does sound wrong. Because I think the way my brain interpreted it was more with less. Do less with more. So you remember I read the book, and along the way, I found a few typos. Yep. And it really hurt. Well, you know why it hurt, and usually it doesn't hurt. Why?
Because usually I can fix it.
Yeah, you can't fix it.
Oh, there's a typo on the blog. I'll go and fix it.
It's there forever now, Doug. Those typos are there forever.
Oh, everyone. There's one typo. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm like, I saw this typo and I was like, and I actually found the typo when I was searching for something on Kindle. So it was accidental. I didn't pick it up on the read, but it was, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it was very, it hurts a lot.
I can't wait to look for it.
Okay, so I'm reading it and I come across, and so it's bolded. Yeah. Do less with more. I'm sorry. Yeah, do less with more. And I'm reading it and I'm like, this is a fucking typo. And it's by now in the book, because it comes towards the very end of the book. By now at this point, you've got, I'm like, do less. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe how was this not picked up? How did we miss this? And then a half hour later, it hit me. I'm like, wait a second. Wait, no, I think that's right. And it is right? It is right. But yeah, it really is a mind bend.
Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of doing less with more.
Yeah. What are we talking about?
Let's do less with less.
Let's do less with less. Oh, that's a great title for the episode. Let's do less with less.
Less with less with Les Nesmith.
Doug, what are we going to talk about today?
You didn't pick up on Les Nessman, Chai Rodriguez.
I don't understand this reference.
You don't know who Les Nessman is?
No.
Oh, your dad would be so disappointed.
Probably.
Les Nessman was the...
He already is.
Was... One more thing to be disappointed with. Les Nessman is the news person on WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. I'm too young for that reference.
But you still have ownership in Cincinnati.
I do still take pride in my time in Cincinnati.
I mean, so WKRP is where I learned that turkeys can't fly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And my favorite scene in any sitcom is when Les Nessman was reading the news and shared that Chai Rodriguez had won a golf tournament. Of course, his name is Chichi Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what are we talking about, Jess?
I wanted you to tee us up. What are we talking about, Doug?
We're going to talk about sludge, nudges, and traction.
Sludge, nudges, and traction.
Sludge. I wanted it to be sludge, nudge, and traction, but nudge doesn't really.
Nah. Nudges.
Sludges doesn't make sense. So it's sludge, nudges, and traction.
Okay. So where I want to start, what prompted this topic is you mentioned that we worry a lot about not making sales reps do anything because sales reps don't do anything. What does that mean?
I may have been being a little bit sarcastic.
No.
Slightly condescending. What's interesting though is I was not being condescending to salespeople.
Yep.
So there is this whole dream, and I would say the number one request that we get is also the number one pushback that we get. And please protect me from recency bias or just being in my own bubble, that I'm not exaggerating this, is we can't do that because we'd be asking users to do too much.
Yeah.
And so what I said is, here's the problem. We're complaining that our salespeople aren't doing anything. So to get them to adopt the CRM, we have to do it in a way so they don't have to do anything. And so we keep trying to solve. It's always about eliminate the friction, eliminate the friction, eliminate the friction.
Yep.
Make it easy, make it easy, make it easy. To the point where the prescription is the result. It's like if we expect that our salespeople are not able to do something, and this is like, well, our sales guys are older. They're not tech savvy.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not tech savvy. Here's one thing I don't understand. If they're not tech savvy, so they're used to using like spiral notebook, right? Using the spiral notebook takes more effort than marking something, right? So it's okay. How do we get them to make that transition? But the idea that here's what I'm seeing. So this is what it means. What I'm seeing is that our sales and marketing efforts are less and less connected, and there's less active thinking that's taking place. And our solution to it is to ask them to think less.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go at a place that you may not have expected me to. So we talk about don't make me think when we talk about sales reps and building genius into the system. When we talk about setting up CRM. So how is don't make me think different than what you're describing?
Wow, Jess. I thought, is this because I said that I'm trying to be respectful of hosts when I'm guesting? Is that why you don't make me think don't make me think about the CRM. Don't make me think about where does this go? How does this go? It's that if I'm having to think about all of the technical stuff, right, then I'm not thinking about the business process. I'm not thinking about the conversation. I'm not thinking about the relationship, right? So what don't make me think means is that and we've talked about this before. People don't adopt technology. The issue is not CRM adoption. The issue is business processing. Yep. And here's the thing: adoption is friction.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I don't know that we've ever phrased it that way.
Well, what we've said is that anything, value being created is friction.
Yeah.
Now, what I would say is adoption is traction.
Right, and you can't have traction without friction.
And traction is friction.
Yeah.
Right. The SEALs have a have a mantra. By the way, you may not know this, but the SEALs have lots of mantras apparently.
I'm aware.
You know why I think the SEALs are known to have lots of mantras?
Why?
Because apparently a lot of ex-SEALs write books.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, like the SEALs' career progression is either, full military or consultant. Like you kind of go into this. I'm just kidding. I know SEALs do other things, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for SEALs. Navy and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But the SEALs have a mantra. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Slow is traction, traction is fast.
Yeah.
That smooth is not no traction or no friction. It actually is add a little bit more friction, slow down, be more purposeful. I love Dave Marquette's books.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the Ship Around. I think it's Turn the Ship Around. And Language of Business. We did the episode before.
Yep.
We've done a couple of episodes on blue work and red work.
We have.
Unfortunately, only one of those episodes ever got recorded.
Kind of like this one almost did.
Almost, yeah, almost. Actually, you made me just look. Yep, I see the clock ticking, so we're good. Watch any Navy film, and what you're going to see is, 3 degrees right stern, 3 degrees right stern eye.
Yep.
Marquette talks about how you point before you do. What you're doing is you're adding that friction to bring greater consciousness, to be more present. You know what? Being present is friction.
Yeah.
And so what I'm seeing is that we're treating all friction like sludge, and sludge is negative friction. Sludge is friction that brings no value at best, and oftentimes brings negative value.
So let's unpack that a little bit. When we're talking about sales process and sales reps, what are some specific examples of sludge or negative friction?
Logging emails is sludge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's nothing gained by logging an email. I would go so far as to say logging is so there's a difference between logging and recording. So logging is sludge. Recording could be sludge, depends what you're recording.
Okay.
Depending upon what the process is. So, what's gained from doing this? So like an example of recording, this is one of my favorite stories. So we have a unique way of calculating sales velocity. I think it actually makes sense given what we're talking about, because most people call sales velocity basically average revenue per day. How long does it take you to that would be deal speed, not deal velocity, right? Yep. Velocity really should get at what are your key constraints. But we have this whole point system that enables a rep to have agency, make decisions. And so different actions have different point values. You got target point value per day, target point value per week. No different than how an athlete would track their performance and things along those lines. And we got a lot of pressure initially of, hey, let's automate this. Why can't I automate this?
Yeah.
And so, for example, how many calls did you make today? How many connects did you have? How many meaningful conversations did you have, etc. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I get it. What I found was when we automated it, it started having less impact.
Yeah.
And where it really had less impact was when we were recording manually, we saw fewer instances of bad days consecutively. Yep. When we automated it, we would see patterns where bad days were followed by bad days. We then took it back off automation and we saw the pattern return. And so what the point was, so like we automatically calculated number of calls made and number of connects.
Yep.
But we manually logged where the real point value is, and where, how many meaningful conversations did you have? How many of this did you do? What of this did you do? And the idea of that was you create a self accountability. Like the problem when something is automated is that it's invisible. And so I always say, at the end of the day, post your number, post your metric. And by the way, you're not reporting to me so much as you're reporting to yourself. And so the point was, if I had a low call day, and oh, by the way, the other thing we saw too, Jess, if you remember, was we saw greater variance. We saw lower lows and higher highs. Yep. And one of the things I've learned when you're dealing with something like sales, especially if you're in the development phase of it, consistency is what rules the day. And so when I'd have a bad, as a matter of fact, the biggest thing that we saw when someone had a bad day is they wouldn't log their number.
Yeah. I mean, it's also interesting because it gets like with this whole point system, the other thing that it gave the rep was agency, which we talk about is so critical, particularly for sales reps, but for anybody using any kind of system. But it's kind of interesting because when you add that automation and you're taking a piece of their agency away from them, right? With that point system, they could kind of pick and choose how they were going to get their points. And
well, the funny thing was exactly that. We started seeing people start asking more strategic questions. They started thinking about their approach to building their pipelines better. And the other thing that we saw was they started picking up patterns.
Yep.
They started saying, you know what, I think I'm better when I do this instead of that. And again, that was we forced you to slow down. We forced you to account against we had one person who was who's your point total for the day was, gave you a red, yellow, or green. And I think her kid was 4 years old, maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have a green day today, Mom?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like those are the things that can you do that if it's automated? Theoretically you can, but it's like now, like me going to look at my number is not the same thing as me putting my number in, because by the way, in putting my number in, I'm creating a mind-body connection.
Yep.
Right? There is proof that the brain to the hand means something. Left to my own device, you would write the number down on a piece of paper and then you would enter it, because there is something very, very powerful about actually moving your hand to write and form, and it connects me to what's going on.
Yeah.
It's why I believe in account.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's that sense of ownership and pride, right? I've put my number up. I've posted it.
There's that, but you just made me think of something else. So, it's the labor of love. So we're always like friction bad, but you can't love something that you don't labor for.
Right. Yeah.
And so I remember when I would be on diets or I was really trying to lose weight and, all that stuff. I remember like I would eat better, and I still do. I eat better if I worked out earlier. And it was like, well, wait a second. Wait a second. I just did a 30-mile bike ride at 7:00 this morning. I'm not going to ruin that. So it was like the labor brought, like it brings an investment into it. And so I think one of the problems is in the pursuit of productivity. So like I think that like the aim is overall good, but the net that's happening is that we're lowering our expectations. Some people are going to think I'm crazy when I say this. We're disrespecting our market.
Why do you say that?
If I were to tell you as a salesperson, I know, Jess, when you work the phones for that
whole
23 minutes that you work the phones. If I were to tell you that please send over your proposal. I'm going to submit it into my procurement. That's procure AI Mint.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to submit it and I'm going to have my large language model break it down, and it's going to spit out and it's going to tell me, oh, here's what I should buy. If I were to tell you that I'm just going to, like, that's how I'm going to treat your offer, how would you feel about that as a sales rep?
Not great.
You'd be like, what do you mean? No, you gotta.
Yeah.
You know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take everything. I'm gonna plug it into this spreadsheet. Oh no! You can't make a decision like this on a spreadsheet.
Yep.
You need to understand what's going on. Okay,
yeah.
Fine. Well, so you're telling me that you're gonna use some agent layer on ChatGPT to do all of the thinking for you, and I'm supposed to invest in that? I mean, here the problem that's happening, Jess, is. And by the way, I am not anti-AI. I'm not anti these things. But if we don't force whatever the job or role is to stop, think, and apply. Now, you know what? There are some functions where you don't need to stop, think, and apply. And guess what? People shouldn't be doing this. People are not necessary for this, right?
You sound like Scott Galloway right now. Just want you to know.
Well, so I think what we're doing is we're doing things, we're applying this to things where people are needed.
No, absolutely.
But having people do it in a way that creates the output where, again, we keep treating the person like they're the bug, not the feature.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what? Hold on a second. I'm going to take issue with what you just said. You said I sound like Scott Galloway right now.
I've been listening to Pivot too much. He goes off on tangent. Well, so what he talks about actually aligns with what you're talking about. So you should be leveraging those tools purposefully, thoughtfully. Like what people are trying to do is use AI and take the human aspect out of it.
You're on point. Scott Galloway sounds like me.
Oh, there we go.
Which, by the way, I sound like Scott Galloway right now saying that.
Yes, exactly. Infinite loop.
So what's happening is, so like I someone who I consider a friend just launched with their Series A, and they're reimagining the CRM. Now, in fairness, you can't say anything probably that leads me to the land of cynicism more than those words, because I've just heard it so many times. In the promotion of it, it's like, it's going to take all of the information, it's going to figure out, and it's going to tell you what's important, and in the morning it's going to tell you here's what your meetings are, this is what's important to Jess, this is what you need to tell Jess, this is what, you know what, we're right back to mail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Except with deep things. It's like insert hi parentheses first ... name parentheses, right? Oh, look, we've personalized it to you. Outside of the fact that you have a whole issue of accuracy. Oh, and by the way, one of the things, theoretically AI could adjust to this, but it does not right now.
Yep.
Is we have to remember, whenever you bring technology to the role of sales and marketing or success, whenever you bring technology to the role of managing relationships, you have to understand that at the very foundation, there is a conflict. And that conflict is, one is based on variance and the other is built to eliminate it.
Yep.
And I know that probably sounds geeky and people, but that is huge. And that is why, as you rely on technology too much, why is Amazon eating everybody's lunch? Because if we're going to rely on technology, Amazon's going to eat your lunch.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not going to beat Google on compute.
Right.
So maybe I should play my games where my winning is not based on compute. And so what do we need to do? We need to take the ability of technology to store terabytes of data to enable our reps to think better.
Yep.
And I got news for you, Jess. People do not like to think. I know you probably haven't noticed this.
People are lazy.
We are biologically lazy. We are lazy because, you know what, Jess? Our laziness. I'm gonna go. You ready for me to go really arcane?
Can't wait. I'm excited.
Down a deep track. This is gonna be a deep track. Our brain's laziness is why we can walk on two legs.
We've talked about this before.
Right. That's true, by the way. Anybody that does not believe me, go back, look it up. You'll see art. Right. And so to think, as a matter of fact, Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize. Kahneman and Tversky. We will do whatever we can to avoid active thinking. And so what is sludge? Sludge is when we have to actively think. And by the way, what is don't make me think? What is it when I have to actively think when there's no value?
Oh, just a waste of time.
Right. So I end up using up my energy. So like if I'm trying to find the property, that's sludge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But it's the difference between, hey, will you look at my presentation and give me feedback and let me walk you through my presentation?
Yeah.
Which one is going to get me readier for my presentation?
Walk me through.
And by the way, on which one am I going to get better feedback? Because if I'm just looking at it, I can't make myself stop and go, wait, that doesn't compute, that doesn't fit. There's something off there, right? Whereas just slowing that down to require stimulus response, stimulus pause response, stimulus pause response creates a level of activation and a level of impact that's a multiple. Now, I'm not saying you should do that on simple, basic things that make no difference. But I'll tell you what, a computer can beat the best chess player. I don't believe it can beat the best poker player.
Yeah.
And it sure as hell can't beat the best baseball player, Jess.
Oh,
you show me a computer that can beat the best baseball player.
Okay. I don't think there is one. Let's talk about nudges. We've touched on nudges before from, when we've talked about behavioral science concepts. And I see a lot where we have clients who their idea of a good nudge is to say, okay, we're just going to like push a bunch of tasks to the rep or push a bunch of email notifications to the rep to remind them to follow up. We're just going to do that daily till they follow up in some extremes. Is that the right type of nudge for a rep? I think the answer is going to be no. And then if not, what is the right type of nudge?
I mean, so a great right type of nudge is system agnostic. A great type of nudge is automatic logging. So nudging is making it easier to do the right thing than not to do the right thing. So the right type of nudge, how is the screen outlined? How is the screen laid out?
Yep.
I could get into a really interesting debate. I've had a debate with myself many times about what level of flexibility to give somebody to change their screen or what's on their screen or how it's laid out. Because, I mean, I've seen some screens that just have like, Jess, I like a lot of information.
I know.
And I've seen some screens that have so much information. I'm like, I can't even. And they say to me, well, that's just how I work. I like to have a lot. I'm like, yeah, but at best it makes it so much harder for you to. So when we talk about email notifications, go on.
No, it's interesting that you bring that up because we don't think about that as a nudge. And by the way, definition of nudge is it uses subtle interventions to help people make better decisions, right? We think of a nudge as something that's like a physical push, for lack of a better descriptor. But I'm going through an exercise right now with two of our clients actually on the views and configuration of records to do exactly what you're talking about. Because the inclination before was we'll just give them everything because they need everything. And now they're realizing that that's causing confusion, friction. So people just aren't even putting anything in.
Is there a difference between a nudge and a nudge? Like, is the Yiddish version of nudge different from like, because nudges are good, nudges are bad.
I learned a new Yiddish word today. I did not know the word nudge.
Here's a nudge. You cannot change the deal stage. The deal stage moves on automation based on other things, one of which is exit criteria.
We do that with ticket pipelines for our project management.
We do that with deal pipelines. I have not moved a deal pipeline stage in.
We do that for deal pipelines unless I'm the sales rep.
That is true. We do have an adoption issue with our chief of staff. That is, yes. I don't allow people to create deals. I know that you violate that rule, right?
Yeah.
And what we have on the form is if I'm showing the same data at the beginning of the deal as I am at the end of the deal, that's a problem. If all I'm doing is increasing the data that you see from the beginning to the end, that's a problem.
If I'm showing the same data for one team as for another team, that's frequently not a good idea because their motions are different.
Correct. And this is where we start talking about the user experience, right? So what's the nudge? The nudge is, how do I make it easier for you to get the signal, to see what you need to see? And by the way, another nudge is a piece of friction, is a pause.
Yep.
Do you know that if you set a rule and you follow the rule that you never eat while standing up, you will eat less and you'll eat better?
No. What?
If we think about, first off, when you eat something while you're standing up, what would, like, how many people have a nice piece of chicken breast while they're standing up?
Oh yeah, no, you can't eat that while you're standing up.
But some Doritos, an ice cream cone. Like, so first off, if you take a look at the type of food that you eat, but also eating while you're standing up enables you to eat without thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, there's something lying around, we just kind of put our hand in, we pick it up, we eat it, and like, oftentimes we don't even know we're doing it. If you make yourself sit down, like if you say, I'm only going to eat when I'm sitting down. If we say, look, what I want you to do is I want you to log everything that you eat. You'll eat less, you'll eat better.
Yeah. Yep.
Studies, I don't know how it is today with the proliferation of the internet, but when I was first a financial advisor, 1998, that was just as Al Gore was inventing the internet. Stockbrokers performed measurably worse than their client. You know why?
Because they were making riskier decisions with their own money?
Why did they make riskier decisions? They didn't have to tell anybody to enter an order.
Oh, yeah. They can just
like
do
some
it
piece of news can come. Oh, wow. I mean, and I could.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Oh, yeah. Whereas the greatest trade I've ever made, not the one that I've made the most money on, but the one that I'm most proud of, is when Steve Jobs came back to Apple. I shorted the stock, which will surprise some people who know how much I. But by the way, Apple was in a lot of trouble when Steve Jobs came back. I'm sorry, it was when Steve Jobs was named the CEO. So he had already come back, but when he was named CEO. And I remember, first I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, nothing's changed. I mean, because the stock just shot up. I'm like, nothing's changed. And first I had just like, so I needed to call my stockbroker about it. And the first thing I had to do was decide, well, am I going to sound stupid? The second thing I had to do was explain it to my broker, who apparently liked the idea so much, I learned later he went ahead and shorted the stock too. But the point is, because I have to pause and think, I make better decisions.
Yeah.
And that's a nudge too.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where we get traction in. And that's where we are missing the entire value. Yep. We need our reps to think clearer, to think more strategically, and to take higher value, more impactful action. And that doesn't happen by making everything non-existent. It's finding where are the key places where we say, slow down.
So one last question on nudges and this, so we frequently get, well, we've got a cadence set up where tasks are assigned to prompt the rep. What do we do if they ignore it? And also the bigger question there is like, what causes reps to ignore nudges?
A nudge is putting fruit at the front of the buffet, not the back, not the end of the buffet.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that because the fruit's at the front of the buffet, I'm going to eat the fruit, right? So it's just something that a nudge makes it a little bit easier to do this, but it doesn't take my choice away. So when you get into that, like, that's not a CRM issue to me. That's a, I mean, look, you've got one thing. What's one reason? You know what? I don't want to call that person. Yeah. I do think that when I'm not connected to it, when there's less agency, when this isn't part of that gets into a lot of context. I think that this is where what causes sales and moving your measurements from activities to outcomes, those influenceable, reasonably controllable factors that lead to success. I mean, by the way, one of the problems is all we do is we measure you by your closed business. Yeah. Right. Well, all that does is tell me what I did yesterday. Right. Right. And what I need to be doing, like, what are the actions that I'm taking today that it's going to make tomorrow a little bit easier? And the difficulty is, I think we oftentimes reverse that. All right. I want to talk about. Oh, it's the wimpy strategy. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Mm-hmm. Yep. You looked up on ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT. I'm sorry. You asked. I said, hey. You asked. I said, hey. Hey, ChatGPT. The biggest complaints from customers about B2B salespeople. And so I'm just going to run through from a high level. Lack of understanding, poor communication, pushy, aggressive sales tactics, lack of product knowledge, inconsistent follow through, insufficient value prop, lack of personalization, ignoring customer feedback, inadequate post-sale support, and complex and confusing sales process. So I guess, what are your thoughts on this, and what's the theme? Like, what's causing? So there are 10. That's 10, right? Is my count correct? Yeah, there are 10. Yeah. 7 of them are directly connected to a sales rep not being connected to the situation. 7 of those directly connect to a sales rep being passive in the situation, or being a non-thinker in the situation. Lack of understanding. Well, guess what? The more, it takes work. It takes active thinking to get understanding. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm a sales rep. I have 50 conversations a month. I talked to you 3 weeks ago. You've had 100 conversations completely unrelated to anything that so I have 100 conversations that are very similar to what I talked to you about. You've had 100 conversations that have nothing to do with what we talked about. Right. Right. And I'm supposed to remember what your flavor of it was, and you're supposed to remember that. That's that place where do we get the sales rep to pause before the call, to think, to connect the dots? How do we take automation to aid the thinking, not replace the thinking? But lack of understanding, poor communication. Here's the thing. ChatGPT brother, what are the 3 problems that a medical manufacturer is having today? Boom, boom, boom. Well, Jess, we spend,
Yep.
several of our clients are dealing with the challenge of, and you're like, oh yeah, and you ask the first question of that.
I don't know what to do.
I can't talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't, right? Poor communication. When I don't understand something and I'm not connected to it, I have no choice but to be pushy and aggressive. Inconsistent follow through. What the hell? Pop up. What am I talking to this person about? You want to help me? This is why I love plays. Don't just give me a task. Give me the play that I'm running that jumpstarts my thing. Lack of personalization. We think that because we've asked ChatGPT what bothers you, again, that's no different than, hi, Jess. We've noticed companies like Lyft. My favorite is we've noticed companies like ImagineLLC.com when we were Imagine.
Oh, yeah,
Imagine LLC is not a company. Like, it literally was just what I needed to do to get the web address.
So if you're doing that, it's like the equivalent of talking to a chatbot. That's what that experience reminds me of.
And correct. We're chatbotting our conversations. We're chatbotting our And again, I'm not saying that there's no place for that, but I am saying that we talk like I'm going to give, I'm going to get. Right?
Yeah.
I want to make this easier. What are we doing to replace that time? And what we're doing is we're just throwing more and more and more volume on people, which is causing them to feel overwhelmed. I mean, disconnect is not just a technology term. Our reps are disconnected with their customers by and large. And don't take my word for it. Just look at what customers are saying. Look at how customers are behaving. Why do I not want to talk to an expert until I'm 70% through the process? That would be like, I don't want to talk to a doctor until I'm 70% through the process of deciding if I want to have surgery. Right? The reason is because we're not showing up as experts.
Yeah. Yep.
And by the way, this isn't that people don't want to spend money for that, because just take a look at the revenue that's going to consulting organizations and research organizations as a proxy for. Like, I don't know. Tell me why do we have all this technology and our conversion rates are down?
I mean, it's what you said. We're removed from the process. We're not
right. We're auto
showing that we understand.
I forget the post. It was, is all this AI helping was the article, and it's like, in its own weird way, the answer is yes, but the people that it's helping are the people who suck at their jobs.
Oh, interesting.
Well, and the point of it was, and realize this. Remember, it is trying to eliminate variance.
Yeah.
It is a massive reversion to the mean. I talk about LLMs, and I say they are the epitome of average.
Yep.
That is all they're trying to do. They're trying to get. I asked ChatGPT what the biggest, what the top complaints are customers have been. I did not get anything that is particularly insightful. By the way, in this case, I didn't want anything insightful. I wanted just right. And so if I have no idea about my market, ChatGPT helps.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my question. For those of you that know what you're doing, for those of you, like, when you look at the response that you get from AI, from a Gen AI tool, do you really look at it and go, oh yeah, that's far better and more nuanced than I could ever.
Ash and I were putting something together and using ChatGPT and I was getting, pissed, I think, is about where do I go? Because I was getting really angry about like, well, this is just not helpful at all. None of this is helpful.
It's kind of like starter bread mix. Like, if you take starter bread mix and you just make the recipe, you're going to have a really, really, really average, not good loaf of bread.
Yeah.
If you take starter bread and you throw your own flair on it, because it gives you, like, Doug, if it's okay with you, I'm not going to go out and chop down the wheat and process it. And,
right.
Like, that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
And we are just turning so much over. I mean, outside of the fact that our data sets are, the number of posts I see about data hygiene and bad data, and then we're like, turn it over to AI, and it's like, well, wait, huh?
Yeah.
And by the way,
as somebody who lives that shit, no.
And by the way, as from a small mid-market business standpoint, there is nothing that you could do to make your large commoditizing competitors happier than turn your thinking over to the technology, because you are not playing to your strength. Use the tool to enable your team to think better. Don't use the tool to replace the thinking. And you know what's interesting is if you expect them to do it, the vast majority of them will step up and do it.
Yep.
I mean, it has to be reasonable. There has to be you're going to get pushback to it. That's part of the creative process. But that doesn't mean, well, we can't do it because that's asking the rep to think. No, the rep thinking, that's part of their job.
Yep. Okay, cool. I got a couple of key takeaways. Adoption is friction. I really liked what you said there. When you're looking to nudge a rep, it's supposed to make it easier to do the right thing. So you're enabling those good habits. The problem with when something's automated is that it's invisible. We've talked about that several times before. And lastly, we want to drive the rep to take a pause so they're thinking actively about the relationship, the business process, the customer needs, but not necessarily actively thinking about the technology. So we want to drive their thinking in the right direction. We want them actively thinking about those things.
That's a nice sum up, Jess. You know what? You make us outstanding.
Oh, well, thank you.
And thanks for saying no to shitty RevOps, Jess.
Until next time.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. The biggest area where I found new perspective in this episode is around nudges. I was in the camp that a nudge is an action someone takes, that physical push. Now I can see that it's much more than that. It's a pause. It's not what we have someone do, but what they're looking at to make better decisions. If your perspective has changed, or if you have any insights and takeaways from the episode that you would also like to share, email me at hannah@liftenablement.com. And if you enjoyed the show, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and give the show a rating. If you want to take an extra step, we'd appreciate you sharing the episode. If you have any questions you'd like to ask Doug and Jess about sludge, nudges, and traction, you can send me an email at hannah@liftenablement.com or hit us up on LinkedIn at Lift Enablement. And until next time, just say no to shitty RevOps.